The Tim Heale Podcasts. Ordinary people's extraordinary stories.
Welcome to the Tim Heale Podcast. In this episode, I'm going to have a chat with Virginia. So, Virginia, if you can tell me when and where you were born, if you can describe to me what it was like where you grew up, the schools you went to, and the education that you received.
All right. Thank you so much for having me today. So, I was actually born in Jerome, Idaho. My dad was in the Navy, so we moved around quite a bit. I was born January 8th, 1971. And from Idaho, we ended up moving to San Diego, California. That's where my dad was stationed at the base there. And from there, we moved around quite a bit. So from there, we ended up in Florida, Green Cove Springs, Florida. And I'm supposing my dad was stationed at Jacksonville. I'm not sure exactly, but so we stayed in Florida for quite a few years.
Can you remember crossing the country? How did you cross the country? Did you go by road? Did you go by train, or did you fly backwards and forwards?
No, we went by car. Yeah, we traveled. My mom told me that when they were heading from California, I think, to Florida, they went through Death Valley. I believe that's in Nevada. I may not be correct on that.
I think it's a bit warm there, isn't it?
Yeah, you don't want to get stuck in Death Valley. That's a bad place to get stuck in. So, yeah, we ended up in Florida. We lived there for, I don't know, several years. I mean, the most it was like, I would say 3 or 4 years maybe that we lived in one place at a time. So we ended up moving from Florida to Tennessee. And then we ended up here in Maine because my dad was stationed at the Brunswick Naval Air Station, which has now since been shut down. That's been closed now. And then I think I was around, I don't know, 10 or 11 years old. My parents ended up getting a divorce. So after their divorce, we ended up moving back down to Florida because my mom had family there and stuff. That was actually a pretty traumatic time in my life. I went through quite a bit of mental abuse, some physical, at the hands of my mom. So I had I want to try, in saying all of this, I want to try to bring inspiration to people who are going through it. My dad divorced my mom knowing what kind of person she was. So it was a very hard time for me. I was actually in ballet when, as probably, I don't know, probably around 7 or 8 years old. I went into ballet. Excuse me. And I was a straight A student. I was doing really well in school. I loved school. I had such a great time with it. Once the divorce happened, though, it's like I felt like my whole entire world fell apart. Things just became very unsettled, not really knowing what I was supposed to do, who I'm supposed to be. And I blame myself actually for the divorce because a lot of kids do. They blame themselves, why, it wasn't me who caused this, and all this stuff. And so for quite a few years, I would say even up to the time I got married, I was married at 18. My husband and I actually met at a youth roller skating event. And so we met there. And before that, actually, we had a summer camp that we would always go to. And I saw him at the summer camp, not realizing that he actually went to my church at the time. And so through the help of the Lord and through my husband and other people in my life, I was able to overcome. Now, when I say overcome, I was able to see myself as someone who had a purpose. Does that mean that I am completely healed of it? Unfortunately, no. I still struggle with it today a little bit because my mom, now every girl would love to be like their mother, or that's what it should be. I never wanted to be like my mom. I even prayed to the Lord I would never be like her. And I was actually praying that a few days ago because of something that happened. And every once in a while, something will stir up, a memory or, something like that. And so at 18, I ended up getting married. We got married October 21st of 1989. So we'll be celebrating our 33rd anniversary. So
Wow.
it's, and that's actually an accomplishment today to actually
It
be married
is.
that long. Um,
Anyway,
so my
this
husband,
this this story is going to be over very, very quickly at this rate. So, um, right, let's wind the clock back. Let's take you back to because you was knocking around, you was moving
mhm,
around quite a bit
mhm,
at a fairly
right.
young age. So when you got to Florida, can you remember driving from California to Florida?
I
Can you
can't
remember that?
really because I was really little, but I do remember living in Green Cove Springs. It was like in the country. We're in a trailer. I remember little things about it, like we had a screened-in porch, and so a lot of times in the morning there would be these lizards that would come on the porch. And so we just watched them scurrying all over. We used to raise
Mm,
rabbits. My dad was raising rabbits and stuff. And I apologize wrapping all this up. I'm trying to get through stuff, but yeah, and I actually love Florida because I
mm,
love the South actually. And I don't know how it is there, but in the Northeast, people are not very sociable in the
mm.
Northeast. And we're kind of the California of the East. That's the way people describe us.
Yeah.
Very liberal here. My husband and I are a rarity because we're very conservative minded.
Mm,
So I love the South in the fact that it's very hospitable. People just, they go out of their way to be, to be friendly, and
yeah.
that's not how it is here. So I really do love the South. But as a kid, I remember my dad. He raised rabbits, and
Was that
it
for the
was
table or just as pets?
um I don't know, actually. I'm supposing it was for food because we had quite a few, so I think it was, and,
Mm,
I just remember, little snippets of things like that.
yeah.
We used to have, like, this dune buggy thing, and my dad would take us on rides around it, so I do have some really good memories of some
Mm,
things. And that's the things I hold on to.
yeah.
I really do like it. But I love the South though. My husband and I actually took our youngest daughter and we homeschooled. We homeschooled both of our kids. So for each of their graduations, we gave them a trip. We told them they could go anywhere they wanted to go. My oldest daughter chose New York City. My youngest daughter chose to go down to Florida to swim with the manatees. And she
Oh.
actually did that. She and my husband. I tried, but I'm not a swimmer. So I'm like, I got as far as getting the scuba diving suit on, and then I kind of panicked. So I'm like, okay, I'll just
Bottled
watch.
out a bit.
But yeah, they were able to swim with the manatees, and that's the kind of experience. It's a once in a lifetime thing. I mean,
Yeah.
she'll remember that for the rest of her life.
Mm,
And it was really amazing, and just being able to see them, from the boat was
yeah.
pretty cool. But one actually swam underneath my husband, and
Mm,
they grow to be about 10 to 12 feet long. So when they weigh,
yeah.
I don't know, 1,000 pounds or something, so they're
They're
really big
fairly big old
animals.
beasts, aren't they?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
anyway, so you're back down in Florida.
Mhm.
So, can you remember going to kindergarten down there, or your sort of your middle school?
Um, Goodness, wow. I think it may have been kindergarten. I do remember in Tennessee me being in kindergarten. I definitely remember that. Um, and there's one memory that comes to my mind. It's so weird. But I was on, one of those trolley, I don't know what you call it. It's like a seesaw kind of horse thing anyway.
Mm,
And I was sitting on one of those and I actually got bit by a spider. I remember
oof.
that clearly. And so I remember having to go to the hospital and all that stuff. I mean, little things like that. I
Was it
had
a big
scarlatina.
spider?
It was like a black and yellow. Yeah, it was probably, I don't know, like that big around.
Oh, big one.
Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah, they have big ones down in Tennessee and
yeah.
Florida. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot of stuff down there
A lot of
where
things
it's
like
hot.
it's a bit like Australia. There's things that want to bite and eat you, isn't there?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, we actually just watched a movie, a TV show about Florida, and they're having a problem with boa constrictors down there. They're, 3 or 400 pounds. They grow to about 30 feet long. So, yeah, we have stuff like that in Florida. And
yeah,
Tennessee, they have, like cottonmouths, they have rattlers, so that warm climate. I don't know how England is,
yeah.
but yeah.
Well, we don't have anything that sort of will bite and eat you per se, unless it's sort of
Yeah.
been sort of escaped from somewhere.
Hmm.
But
But
as
I
a
I
general
really
rule, we
love
don't have
school.
anything like that.
Yeah, I really loved school when I was, when I was little. And like I
Mm.
said, I was in ballet and, I loved it. And, now as an adult, sometimes you go through school and, well, for history, for example, you have all these dates and these people and all this stuff. And it's just a bunch of dates and times and stuff. But now as an adult, I absolutely love history. I love to go back and
Mm.
study, and I've always loved learning. That's one thing I never lost. I love to learn things. So yeah.
So what period of history captures your imagination?
My favorite is actually the Regency. I absolutely love it. Jane
Ah,
Austen and King George, right, would be in there, I think. Yeah.
so the
Um
late 17, early 18.
yeah, that's my favorite.
Ah, so you studied the Peninsular Wars then?
Actually, no. I need to study that then, I guess.
No,
I've never
no,
actually heard of that.
that's
I
right in
haven't
the
studied
middle of it.
everything. Oh, okay.
That's
I'll have to study
that's
that
right
then.
in the middle. I mean, of
I
course, you're aware that we had a little bit of a tete-a-tete with Napoleon
Mhm.
Bonaparte,
Mhm.
old Nosy himself, and
Right. Yeah.
Lord Wellington gave him
Mhm.
a little bit of a bloody nose on a few occasions. I think
Yeah, and
Lord
I
Nelson started it at Trafalgar.
right. And I do love the fashion of the Regency. I've actually made several outfits. You can see one. Whoops, you
Yeah,
can see one back there,
behind you. Yeah,
So I love the study of the fashion and the etiquette of the
yeah.
Regency and stuff like that. So yeah. Yeah, it's pretty cool. My second part of
I'll tell you,
history,
I'll tell you a good series to watch if you can get it. It's the Sharp series.
Sharp series. Okay, I'll have to keep that in
Yeah,
mind. Yeah, I've never
I
seen
mean,
it. Huh.
Sean Bean starred in it. I mean, it's predominantly an English,
Oh,
but
okay.
it was written by Bernard Cornwell. And
Okay.
if you
Huh.
ever had, I mean, he describes what it was like in that Regency period, and
Mhm.
there's a kind of song that goes along with the series. It's called "Over the Hills and Far Away."
Huh.
Um,
Okay,
so
wow. Cool.
that's I think you would really enjoy that series because
Mhm.
it shows the fashion, it
Mhm.
shows the predominantly the Peninsular Wars,
Mhm.
but what it was like in those sort of times is it's a
Oh, wow.
fascinating
Okay.
series. So there you go, top tip.
Well, I do love a series called Wives and Daughters. That's one of my favorite. I've That's like a BBC, I think,
Mm,
production. But yeah, yeah.
yeah, Little Women, Pride and
Mhm.
Prejudice,
Oh yeah.
all
Yeah,
that.
Sense and
Yes,
Sensibility.
yeah, I know the sort of thing.
Mhm.
Well, say the Sharp series isn't quite as romantic as that, shall we
Mhm.
say? But it's a very good series from
Okay, awesome.
seeing what it was
Wow.
like at that time in history. But there you
Mhm.
go.
Awesome.
So
Wow.
history's one of your favourites then.
Yeah, and the second, I don't know, era or time of history, I think would be during, around the 1800s, the late 1700s, 1800s here in the
Mm.
United States when the founding of our nation. And I actually want to do a series on the founding mothers of our country. And I think that's such an
Like the fathers
awesome
then.
part of history. The
Not the
what?
founding fathers, but the founding
Well,
mothers.
my husband's actually gonna do, because he just actually joined me as co-host for our podcast, so he's gonna be doing a series on the founding fathers.
Ah.
Yeah.
Because I guess that story is really, really well known because
Mhm.
that's taught from a very early age, isn't it? About the founding fathers.
But,
And
you know, the
but
point I
behind,
want to bring out is we're actually trying to erase that in our country, which is really sad. Yeah. They're trying to actually erase our history in this nation,
yeah,
and
they're trying to
yeah.
change ours as well.
Mhm.
But there's
Right.
an awful lot more of our history to try and erase than yours.
Oh, really? Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
But
sad.
you know what they say: behind every great man, there's a great woman.
And I think of women like Abigail Adams who, the pen is mightier than the sword, really.
Mm,
And so many letters she wrote to her husband, and yeah, I don't know everything, so I need to go and research, but yeah, I just there's such strength there,
yeah,
when you think about how many, and it's not just women and men both, how many things they did, in our country, and how much courage they had. That's what inspires me is that courage, that they were
yeah.
able to have. And yeah, it's definitely
And then you get somebody like Calamity Jane. I mean, look what she did for the West.
Mhm.
I think she might be a fictional character actually.
Hmm.
But there you go. So anyway, we strayed off a little bit.
Yeah, sorry.
Let's kind of get back on. Let's try and explore a little bit of your middle school. Where did you go to middle school?
Middle school, I was actually in Tennessee, so we stayed there for, yeah, 3 or 4 years. um Yeah, I mean, I have a few memories of middle school. We actually walked to school. The middle school was, I don't know, quarter of a mile from our house. So we actually walked back and forth to school, which I actually enjoyed. I
Mm,
enjoyed. And, during that time, you could walk to school. You didn't have any fear that,
yeah,
somebody would harm you. And, we never even thought about things like that back then. Now I wouldn't have let our kids walk to school, but
yeah. So, um, what was your favourite subject at that school?
oh goodness, well,
Told you I'll
I
get
would
you to
have
rack your
to
brains.
I would have to say again, like history. I love biology. I thought that was really fun. I liked learning things like that. Science. I don't know if I'm trying to remember if that was taught in middle school or high school. I don't know. I don't
Mm.
remember.
I
But
guess you touched on it a
I
bit
do
in
like
middle school.
science though. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. I enjoy learning. Like I said, I love to learn.
Yeah. So was it a big school, your middle school in Tennessee?
Um,
Was it
it
thousands
wasn't
of kids there?
huge. I say, it's probably, I don't know, there might have been 100 students maybe in that school. Yeah, it wasn't a
Mm.
really, really big school. The
Mm.
biggest school I've ever been to was actually Inglewood in Jacksonville, Florida. That was probably, I would say that was over 1,000
Mm.
students, maybe even 2,000 students in that school. It was pretty big. But the middle school, it was maybe 100 students. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a small town.
Yeah.
Because my dad was actually stationed in Memphis, so we lived in a town called Munford, which was, I don't know, probably a half an hour, 45 minutes maybe. I'm not
Mm.
positive on that, so but it wasn't very far from there, I don't think. While we were in Tennessee, we didn't go in his house, but we actually saw Elvis Presley's house. That was pretty cool.
Oh, Graceland, eh?
Yes.
And did you ever get to go to the Grand Old Opry?
I never did.
Oh.
No. That would have been cool though,
Mm.
but I never
So,
did get to go.
so were you influenced at all by the music around Memphis at the time?
Mhm. Yeah, a little. I mean, I I think as a kid though, I remember laying in bed at night, actually listening to baseball games. I
Oh,
really
right.
liked baseball. No, I don't know everything about baseball, so I am not. But, I don't know. I just remember, listening to that. I just thought it was fun listening to it. That's something I did.
Yes.
Hmm.
That's a strange thing for a young lady to be listening to.
I still like baseball a little bit, and I don't know all the ins and outs of it, but
Mm.
um I would like to go to a Red Sox game. I think it'd be really fun. Here we have oh, what is the name of the team? I can't think of it. Oh, I can't think of it now. But anyway, I'd like to go to a Red Sox game. That would be really fun.
Sounds like fun. So, I mean, it's a bit like rounders, isn't it? Baseball. You got somebody throws a ball at somebody and they got to hit it with a bat,
Mhm.
and then once they've hit it with a bat, they've got to run round. And
Right. Yeah, to the different bases and stuff. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah, kind of understand it. It's
A
not
little
much more
bit.
to understand. Not a lot more to understand, really.
So what is equivalent to that? Would it be is it called cricket? Is that what it's called or something like
Yeah,
that?
I think cricket is about
Okay.
where baseball started from.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah, I
Okay.
think
So
that's
that's
that's kind
interesting.
of where they got the idea of a
Mhm.
bat and ball.
Oh,
But
okay. Wow.
cricket has been going for quite a few centuries now. I think
Oh, okay. Wow.
Henry VIII played it, so it goes back for
Oh,
quite a while.
wow. That
Mm,
is cool.
yeah.
Well, I've seen a couple of movies. One comes to mind, Chronicles of Narnia. The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. That
Yeah.
reminds me. They had that in there, I think. Yeah. So that kind of reminds me of that.
So let's move on then. Let's look at your high school or junior high school. Which did you have? Was it middle school, junior, or just high
Yeah.
school?
Yeah. So yeah, we were in Florida then, and then we had moved back to Maine because of my mom's health. So I went to a high school. I went to Inglewood in Jacksonville for several years. And that was I think the middle school is really where my problems started. And then, high school was really tough. At that point, I didn't like school anymore. And I mean, I think I still held on to that love of learning always,
Mm,
but I had a lot of issues going on at home. Um, and I don't, in saying all this, I don't want to bring negativity to your podcast or anything, but, I want to let listeners know, a lot of young people go through things, and there are times when people don't really pay attention to what we're going through. And as
mm,
a young person, um, I was actually going to a Baptist church when I was in Tennessee, and it started there in Tennessee, the problems. My dad was gone for 6 months at a time, so my mom was having to raise two kids on her own, my brother and I. And there were some abuse going on in the home, and I think that my pastor maybe knew about it, but a lot of people just don't want to get involved. They feel like they don't want to be bothered with it, or it's not something they want to get involved with.
mm.
And I remember, really having one. I do remember specifically, the pastor that I had, he actually taught at the middle school that was there. And I think he taught English or something. And I actually broke down in his class, and I had an anxiety attack, and I just broke down. But I don't ever remember him coming to my home to inquire about why. I don't ever remember him
Mm.
coming to my house, asking or wanting to get involved, wanting to see what was going on. So during my high school years, um, I had
So
tried to commit suicide twice. I had a really hard time with depression.
yeah, so you weren't very successful at that. Right.
No.
Let's just.
Thankfully, you know.
The pastor uh, in England. I mean, uh, we don't have pastors as such. We have vicars,
Mhm.
and that's part of their remit to get involved. If they
Mhm.
see something that's not right, if they see
Mhm.
any sort of child abuse or something,
Mhm.
it's their duty
Mhm.
to
Right.
challenge it. And
Yeah.
and I guess it's the same for a pastor. But if he didn't have the wherewithal to challenge it, then he's not a
Mhm.
particularly good pastor to start with.
Right, right. And I do feel like that there were plenty of opportunities for him to realize something was going
Mm,
on. Um, but a lot of times abuse isn't always what we think it is. I mean, like in my
mm,
situation, and I actually had this with my oldest daughter who went through a really abusive time in her first marriage. We don't always see it. It's not always out there in the
mm,
forefront. And so a lot of times people miss that. There were some red flags that should have been noticed. But like I said, a lot of people, they just don't want to get involved. They don't want to be bothered by it. And
mm,
so that kind of gave me a sense of hopelessness in a way. Um, but it wasn't until I met my husband and he really helped me to change my way of thinking because, I was really told that, I wasn't good enough. I would never be loved by anybody. I didn't have a purpose. And when I met the Lord, I give God all the glory, really, because
mm,
when I met the Lord, my mind was changed. And God was able to help me see that I am a person with a purpose. Everybody on this earth has a purpose. Everyone on this earth has a reason why they've been created, why they've been born, and it's so important that people understand that. And if you do even have an inclination that something might be happening, it is really, like you said, our duty to step in and say, look,
mm,
you need to get help, or try to get someone who can help that person.
mm,
um but once I was in high school, I had a lot of, things going on. I left home at 16 because I was tired of the abuse. I had people around me who were supporting me, and I actually lived with a few people after that. I did quit public school, and I ended up going to a Christian school, and I graduated in 1989, valedictorian. Now, when I say valedictorian, there were only 3 students in my graduating class, so it wasn't a very big school.
huge school then.
But I did graduate valedictorian, and then about 6 months later, I got married. So I was engaged during high school
Mm,
at the Christian school. And then 2 years later, our oldest daughter was born. So she was born in 19 yeah, 91.
91,
There we go.
91.
And then in 97, we had our second daughter. So, yeah. And actually, to go along with that, it was actually a miracle that I have so many stories of how God has worked in my life.
Mm,
Um, I only have 1 ovary. So I was born with only 1, and the doctors were actually amazed that I was able to get pregnant at all. And so in 91, I gave birth to our first daughter, and then for 6 years we tried for another child, and our second daughter was conceived, and we were doing an ultrasound, and she had Down syndrome. And so my husband and I, we went to the church that night and we prayed. And before that, the nurse who did the ultrasound was ready to schedule me for an abortion.
mm,
And I told her no. I said, if God has given us this child, which I believe he has, then he knows that we can take care of her no matter what. And so we did go and pray, and we prayed that, if this was God's will, then I know that he would equip us as parents to raise her. But if he was willing to heal us, and I do believe in God's healing, that, we prayed for that healing of her. So we had another ultrasound, and on the first ultrasound, you could clearly see she had Down syndrome. It was definite. We had another ultrasound, and the Lord healed her of it. And she is an absolutely beautiful, almost 25-year-old girl today. So yeah. So my daughters will be 31 and 25.
Good grief. And I mean, so she's got no downs, any symptoms whatsoever.
No, not any
Wow.
at all. No, no, she is very thriving. She has a great job, and she is soon to be married. And so, yeah, yeah, she is
Great.
absolutely amazing. Both my daughters are amazing.
Mm.
And, my husband is an amazing man. He has got such a heart for the Lord, and he has helped me in so many ways. And like I said, we're celebrating our 33rd anniversary of marriage, and God has brought us through quite a bit.
So you've been out. You've been out a long time ago, had you? with even without good behaviour, you'd have been out a long time ago. So, right. So, married at 18. Did you when you graduated high school? You clearly didn't go to university of any sort, other than
No,
the
no.
University of Life.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, pretty much.
so, what was your first job? How did you support yourself?
Oh, goodness. I actually worked at like a retail store for quite a few years. It was several years, and worked through most of my pregnancy, um, with my first daughter. And we had made it up in our minds pretty early that once we had children, I wasn't going to work. And that was something
Mm,
we chose to do. Um, when my first daughter got a little bit older, she was probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 years old. I did work for a little bit, and I had her in daycare, but I realized pretty early that I didn't want to do that. I didn't really want someone else raising my daughter.
mm,
And so I chose to stay home and raise our kids, and we ended up homeschooling them. And yeah, it was something we definitely chose to do, to raise our own kids. And we didn't want our children in a daycare with, somebody else raising our kids. So yeah.
mm.
Um, but yeah.
So let's explore that a little bit then. Homeschooling. I mean, how were you qualified to be able to do homeschooling? Because you didn't go to university, so you
Right.
didn't get any sort of teaching qualification.
Nope, I didn't.
So so how does the law stand on that to start with? And
Well, here in Maine, you do have to register with the state, or you have to register with some school. So we went through a Christian school, to be able to, because you have to bring, like, once a year, you have to bring proof that you're progressing in your schoolwork and things like that. No, I didn't have college, and I would say to any homeschoolers out there who are considering homeschool, college is great, and that's, if that's something you want to do. But a lot of times, I think, yes, we do need to focus on the academics, but it's also really important to focus on life skills. We have a
mm,
lot of young people that are growing up now that honestly don't have the life skills to be able to. And now I'm not perfect at the financial part of things. My husband is the finances guy, but, they need to know how to, write out a check, balance a budget. They need to know how to, make appointments to get your car fixed, and a lot of young people don't know how to do those things.
mm,
So with homeschooling, no, I didn't have a college degree, but I had a heart to know that I wanted to teach my kids life skills. And I wanted to teach them how to read. I wanted to teach them how to think for themselves. My daughters are both great readers. My oldest is more so into reading than my youngest. But by the time my oldest was 6 or 7 years old, I mean, she was reading well above her reading level.
Mm.
Um, my youngest daughter, she started reading around, I'd say 8 or 9 years old. And I got a little bit of flack from that because my family wasn't for me homeschooling. And when my youngest wasn't reading off, at 6 years of age, they kind of got on to me about that. But I told them, every kid learns differently. My children are hands-on learning. That's how
Mm.
they learn. They like to learn by doing. I'm a hands-on learner. And so, simple things, for instance, baking cookies, you can do science, you can do math, you can do all kinds of home skills, life skills,
Mm.
teaching them just by baking them cookies. You know?
Yeah.
So I mean there's so many different ways you can teach and not have to have a college degree. We would take them on field trips and, say to an aquarium or something, or when we went to Florida, we went through Virginia. We went to a historical like park, and so they're learning history. And by that time, she was graduated from homeschool. But
Mm.
we would take them on field trips, and we would have open discussions about different things, politics, even. Talking about, well, what do you think about this or that? And it causes them to really stop and consider, what do I think about things?
Mm.
And so both of our daughters are very deep thinkers. They really, they know how to analyze things, and they know how to go about doing different things. So
Mm.
homeschooling is definitely, I would definitely do it again.
So, how did you go about putting the curriculum together for them?
Um,
Did you have to go to so you said you got a church school? Did you follow their kind of curriculum?
mhm.
Did you have set hours during the day for different lessons, or did you spend a whole day maybe in the kitchen doing
Mhm.
the science, the reading, the maths,
Right.
just to cook dinner? Um,
Um,
or
we
how did you go about that side of it all?
we did use some textbook. We had, for the Bible, we did Bible learning and stuff like that. We had paces, so it's like workbooks that you would go through. We used some textbook for math and English. Even science, we would do videos on creation science. We'd watch different videos. We did a pre primer with the Laura Ingalls Wilder books. So we would go through and we'd learn about life skills and cooking and historical things that they would do and stuff like that. Um, and then we would go outside and just observe nature. And usually, we'd start around 9 or 10 o'clock when they were little. When they got to be older, I would say probably, 13, 14 years old. My daughters are night owls. So a lot of times they would sleep in and they would do
Mm.
their studies later in the day. So, my daughters would be doing, 7, 8 o'clock at night, they'd be doing their studies.
Mm.
But at that point, I just allow them to do that because really with homeschooling, you have more freedom to adjust your hours and not really having a set time. For English, for their textbook studies, I would have them do so many pages per day.
Mm.
They would have to read whatever book that they picked out of the library. They would have like an hour reading time. And then we would do a lot of narration. So that would help them to remember what they read. They'd do a lot of book reports, things like that. We do a lot of hands-on. So if they had a science project, we would actually make something. Or, for instance, when we were going through the Laura Ingalls Wilder books, we would actually make stuff. We'd do different experiments and things like that that would go
Mm.
along with the book. So you do have a lot of freedom to set your own hours. A lot
Mm.
of people, they do homeschooling in the summer and they take the winter off. Some people will do it in the winter and take the whole summer off. So you do have a lot of freedom to be able to
Mm.
set your own hours and pretty much do your own things. We did have to bring some kind of progress report at the end of the year. I think we had one at the beginning and the middle as well. And then they did have us do SATs. I chose not to because to me, and maybe I'm wrong about this, but I feel like that it almost labels kids. It puts them in a certain
Mm.
category, and in a way, in some ways, it sets them up for failure. And I didn't want to do that to my kids. My kids, neither one of them went to college because we just couldn't afford it. It was not financially possible for
Mm.
us to go to send our kids to college. And college isn't for everyone. I feel like if
No.
you go and get a degree, it depends upon what field, I guess, you go in, but a lot of these kids now are getting these degrees and then they're finding no job when they get out of college. And they're accumulating hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt and they're starting out. And to me, we didn't want to have our kids start out that way on their
Mm.
own. It's just it's just too
Yeah.
overburdening.
I think it's exactly the same over here as well. I mean, the
Mhm.
kids nowadays are turning away from going to university, and they're looking for more apprentice type
Mhm.
schemes where
Right.
that
Mhm.
where they can learn and earn at the same time. So they're not
Right, right.
saddled with a massive amount of debt when
Mhm.
they finally sort of qualify or graduate. Mm.
Right. We actually just had a meeting at our American Legion, and the gentleman who is running for governor said that we need to bring back trade schools in our state
Absolutely.
because we're having a lot of young people who are leaving the state because of all these mandates that we've had over here. Um, for instance, we have nurses, and this one nurse told us this, that we're having nurses coming into the state of Maine from Texas, from California, and they're earning 3 times the amount that the nurses are earning here in the state of Maine. We need to be able to keep people in this state, and because of the mandates and because of we are considered a welfare state, and
Mm.
so because of, for example, there are 55,000 men under the age of 29 who are out of work just in the state of Maine.
Mm.
It's a really bad epidemic here, and we've got to keep young people here. We need to
Yeah,
introduce, like you said, apprenticeship is a great thing because they can
yeah,
be earning while they're learning something, while they're learning a
that's it.
skill.
Yeah, getting a trade.
Right.
I think I think we had exactly the same problem over here where they've been pushing that
hmm
everybody needs to go and get a university education. Well,
hmm
everybody doesn't. I mean, years and
Right.
years ago when I was going through sort of, I didn't really
hmm
go through school, but I joined the army at 16.
hmm
But that wasn't it was more apprenticeships back then,
hmm
and university was for the odd grammar school kid that was bright enough to want to go to university.
Right. Right.
Um, and the average kids in sort of the big comprehensive schools, it wasn't something they did.
hmm
They went on to doing apprenticeships,
Right. Right.
and for some reason, successive governments have decided that universities is the way forward because, again, follow the money. It's
Right.
money driven. I mean, the
Right. Oh
minimum
yeah.
minimum now is £9,000 for the
Wow.
first year.
Wow.
Uh,
Yeah. Well,
for
I
in
don't know
some of the
what that
college course,
would be to
it's about
US dollars. I don't know.
13,000 US dollars for
Oh,
the
wow.
first year.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean,
Wow.
and
Yeah.
that's for the course. That's not
Mhm.
living expenses or anything like that. That's they
Exactly.
they
Right.
have to pay the university
Mhm.
to to go on a course to start with. I mean, that's crazy.
Mhm.
It's
Well, like
great,
for
but
example, with our youngest daughter, she did look into an art school down in southern Maine. By the time she would have graduated from that school, with the school and the living expenses, it would be almost $200,000 that she would be strapped with. And we really discouraged her from going. There were several other reasons, but to have
mm,
that kind of debt starting out in your life, that is
yeah,
crazy. And that's not including buying a house, having
mm,
to buy a car, food. Now our heating here is really expensive. I mean,
yeah,
Maine is one of the most expensive states to live in.
mm.
It's very expensive to live here.
Pretty much the same in the rest of the Western world.
Mhm. Right.
Everything's going astronomically
Right, yeah.
expensive.
Well,
So
that's why we actually started homesteading. We have a farm, Barton Cottage Farm, and we started homesteading because the cost of everything is going through the roof, and so
mm,
we actually want to own our own food source. We want to raise
yeah.
our own food, which they're even
Did that
trying to fight that.
say did that come from the Laura Ingalls thing for books from Little House on the Prairie?
I think
Maybe
so, some of
is that
it.
where you
Yeah.
got that?
Yeah. I
Or
like the
or
prairie, that prairie spirit,
yeah.
pioneer spirit. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know whether you saw it in America, but we had a program over here a few years back called The Good Life, and
Oh,
it
I've
was all
never
about
seen it. Huh.
a couple living in suburbia and trying to be self sufficient.
Mhm.
But this is back in the sort of, I guess, late 70s, early 80s that this program was on. But it was quite amusing, and it was a comedy program, but
Mhm.
it was just trying to be that green, sustainable type
Right,
of
yeah.
life without,
Mhm.
and instead of having money, they'd barter stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we may have to get back to that bartering,
Mm,
and so I wanna be able to connect with a few farmers in my area and be able to contribute to the community.
mm,
And that's one of the reasons for our homestead, is because not only providing food for ourselves, but actually teaching how to provide food for yourself,
mm,
so educating
yeah.
people in how to raise their own food is something that I would like to be able to do. So kind of an education center in a way. So
Mm.
yeah.
I can see where you're coming from. That you get young kids in, you bring them in, you're showing them how to do all this
Mm.
stuff, and it's like cheap labour. Yeah, method in the madness. I mean,
Right, that's a good idea. Yeah.
somebody said that give a man a fish and he'll eat for a day. Teach a man to
Mhm.
fish and he'll be going
Absolutely.
fishing every day.
Absolutely, right. Because a lot of people don't know where their food comes from,
Yep.
and we really do need to know, and, we actually have a situation right now where we're hoping it's not gonna devastate our farm. Talking about the green energy and all this stuff, this company, actually, there's 3 companies involved. They scattered around farmers' fields, and they asked them, and the farmers gave them permission, not knowing what was in this. They were told it was organic, but it's called PFAS. And it's actually
Mm,
a chemical that's like in duct tape, it's in carpets. The paper mills, I think, use it. And we're finding out now that it's causing cancer in young men. It's causing all kinds of health problems. And it's been scattered over the fields and stuff for quite a few years. And
mm,
if it is found in our soil, it could actually devastate our farm. So we're so I mean, I'm for some green things,
mm,
and I'm for organic if it's truly organic.
yeah.
This, however, was not. But here in Maine, we're having a lot of these solar farms building up and different things like that. They actually, if they come to your land and ask you if you want to build, or have them build a solar farm, they will pay you $20,000 a month to have this solar farm on your land.
Mm.
My answer would be no, unless I had another place. I probably actually my answer may be yes, and I just move out of Maine, go somewhere warm. But the reason why I say no is because the amount of money that you have to put into these solar farms, you're not getting back.
No.
It's a huge expense,
Unless you're down in
you
the
know.
southern states where you get
Mhm.
an awful lot of sunshine.
Right,
In the
yeah.
northern
Here in
states, I
Maine,
guess
that's not that's
it's a
not.
bit like us. I mean,
Mhm.
on a day like today where we've got beautiful sunshine,
Mhm.
the solar's working great.
Mhm.
But on an overcast day, it doesn't produce enough
Right,
to keep us
exactly.
going.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, for your situation, if they find that you've got this stuff in the soil, then it would
Mhm.
be a no-brainer
Mhm.
to let
Right.
them have put solar farm
Right.
on there.
Y
Maybe that's
and
what they've worked on in the first place.
Mhm, and I mean,
Mm.
they could come in and clear it, but they would actually have to take 3 feet of our topsoil in order to clean this up. 3 feet of our land would be gone. So
And
it's
you
I
don't
don't
know the
know.
clay underneath, I guess.
Right, yeah, we do
Mm.
have a lot of clay soil where we are. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. But who knows? I don't know. We're still gonna keep going until we find out,
Yeah,
but it
I
does
guess
make it
time will tell on
difficult,
that one.
yeah. Right, yeah, and there is
Mm.
actually a lawsuit, that they're trying to get together to come against these 3 different companies, so, yeah, we'll see what
Yeah.
happens, but we're gonna keep going. We're hoping to get goats, next month, actually, and we have our chickens, and we have a huge garden, so who knows?
Well, time will tell on that one.
Right.
And time and hard work.
Right. And that's what I like about homesteading and about the pioneer spirit. The
Mm.
hard work is what built our country, you know,
Absolutely.
and when unfortunately with all this mandate stuff going on, like I mentioned, 55,000 young men
Mm.
are out of work, and it's not because there isn't work. It's because
Yeah.
they're paid not to work. So we need to get that
Yeah. Or
pioneer spirit
benefits.
back.
Yes. Yeah. There's something definitely wrong when it's more profitable not to work
Mhm.
than to
Right,
go to
yeah.
work. I mean, the system's wrong there somewhere along the
Mhm.
line. If people are being paid not to go to work, there's
Right,
something definitely wrong in the game
right.
there.
And I love to be productive. I can't imagine not working. I mean, I have house cleaning jobs that I do right now. I have a podcast I do. So I love working. I love being
Mm,
able to do and feel like you're productive at the end of the day. That brings
absolutely.
a definite, satisfying feeling to me anyway.
So, Virginia, tell us about your podcast and how people can get hold of you and watch
Okay.
your podcast.
So I have a podcast called the Vintage Cafe Podcast. Started out a vintage lady and then I changed it, changed the name of it. Um, it is now with my husband. My husband and I both host the show, and you can find me at www.thevintagecafepodcast.com.
Brilliant. And what's it all about?
Well, we have a variety of subjects. Like I've already mentioned, we homestead. So we do subjects about homesteading. We are starting on Mondays to have Bible topics. So we started out with the authority of the Bible and why we can know that it needs to be followed, and it's definitely true with what it says. I have a lot of great guests. I've had you on my podcast, which was
You
awesome.
have?
And I like to talk about history. different people and events in history that we don't normally think of. So I kind of like to draw people out. Like I want to do one on Rosa Parks. I would love to
Hmm.
do one on there. And I want to do some podcast episodes about the founding mothers of our country, Dolly Madison, Abigail Adams, so those are just a couple that I'd like to do. And so it's kind of a variety of subjects, but we have Monday, Wednesday, and Friday now that we do podcast episodes.
Uh-huh. And is that going out live or is that pre-recorded?
Pre-recorded. I haven't got to the place where I can do live yet. I would like to eventually. And right where we are, our internet is kind of wonky. So it works some days, some days it doesn't. But if we're ever able, and we are working on that as a town, we're trying to get better internet. If we can get better internet, I would actually like to do a YouTube channel. So where we're
Hmm.
podcasting, we're going live, and yeah, that would be pretty awesome. I'd like to do that someday.
It's fun. It's fun to do a live. I do a Thursday live stream,
Hmm.
and yeah, we have an awful lot of fun with that.
Yeah, I love podcasting. I've met so many amazing people all over the world. It's just truly amazing the stories that people
Mm.
have to share. And yeah, I absolutely
Yeah,
love it.
brilliant. Well, Virginia, I've enjoyed our little chat.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
No, you're most welcome.
The Tim Heale Podcasts. Ordinary people's extraordinary stories.